Welcome back to Las Vegas. It's always nice to talk to an old friend, and Matt Goss is back here. He's still doing business, and it's so nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you again, mate.
Listen, you look so well. You're doing such big business. You're so successful. You just come back from England where you did that great show at the Royal Albert Hall, which was tremendous. Has your life ever been more perfect in a sense that people are finally appreciating you for your voice?
I mean, it was phenomenal to go back to the UK this time and actually see the press write the words Matt Goss, not former Bros star, which is absurd to me. For me, you got to understand, like, it's quite strange. I was just in the White House last week, and I got a personal tour, and then another personal tour of the Pentagon, and they know nothing of my past, and they just know me now. And so I will say it is a relief in a way. I think Piers Morgan said to me, "Do you think they'll ever stop saying formally of?" And the last trip back, not one journalist said formally of, and I think that is a nice thing, because I'm a musician. If you cut my heart open, you'd feel music coming out of it. I love music with all my heart and soul. So yeah, it is an amazing place to be, just to be able to be considered a singer.
And you're a tremendous singer. I saw you about 18 months ago in the Gossy Room, which is your own place here in Caesar's Palace. I mean, the most legendary hotel and casino in the world, really. And you have your own room, you have your own show. There's a class about you that really isn't the case in show business generally now. It seems like everything's about make as much money as you can, as quickly as you can, do as many reality TV shows as you can. You don't go in for any of that nonsense, do you? You make sure the show is good, of quality, and people come out having experienced an event.
I think for me, I think the true meanness of a show, if you can have no bells and whistles and just have your band that trust you, my band trust me, which is the biggest compliment, is my mission is to have the trust of my peers on stage. And in regards to having class, first of all, thank you. But I was raised very well. We were raised from a very simple family. I'm a South East London boy, which I'm very proud of, still born in Lewisham Hospital. But it doesn't mean because we grew up with nothing. I know I've been lucky enough to be around the finer things in life. Again, going back to the White House, as I was telling you before, like every single detail that I wear, whether it be my tie-pin or my cufflinks or my Palzilleri tuxedo, my tuxedo watch, whatever, my Patek, anything. There's everything that I have, that I wear. I enjoy the ceremony, and I think that there's a tremendous amount of ceremony that men especially can have that we don't take advantage of. There's some, and I think that I'm also a Brit, so when I travel abroad, I get a strange internal sense. Being a royalist, I want to represent my country and my upbringing and my beautiful island wherever I go. And I also love America, and I feel more comfortable being enveloped with civility.
Do you also pinch yourself that you're able to buy the watch that you talk about and the incredible tuxedo? Because these things don't come cheap. You're a guy from London who, let's face it, could have disappeared like most other stars from your generation. I mean, how many of them are still here? It's a two-part question. One, is that ever normal when you're able to buy that watch? And secondly, do you still pinch yourself that you're still here, you're still current, and most importantly, relevant?
I think that I don't think I'll ever be used to the finer things, actually being able to get them. First of all, I will say Palzilleri were kind enough to give me my tuxedos, because they know I love their brand, but there is a lot of that as well. But certainly you don't get these kind of watches and stuff like that. It used to mean a lot more to me than it does now. I think really what matters to me now is my health. Truly, I mean, I want nothing this year except good health. Then everything else, then I want to be able to sing as much as I can, and then if I'm able to have things, I don't think you should ever feel ashamed about enjoying the finer things in life, but I think categorically should never be the center of your universe. I think if you chase possessions, you won't have them. I've done that before in my life, and they meant more to me, but really the safety of my family and the safety of my mum is far supersedes anything that I can buy myself.
You talk about your physical health, but of course mental health is more important in show business. Through the years, through the ups and downs, to come out the other side and still have a balanced perspective must be one of the most difficult things, because I talked to you earlier before we started the interview about longevity. It is a long-term game, isn't it? Because having 2 years of being the biggest star and then nothing leaves you nowhere.
Yeah, I said this back when I was a teenager, like literally when I was 17. They said, "What do you want?" I said, "I just want to still be doing this when I'm 40," and I'm 40 now, and I'm still doing it. And I think that I'll stick to this statement. Success to me is longevity. You can have a #1 record, literally, and then that will be that could end. Unfortunately, I've seen people tell a story where they had a hit in 1970 or 1980 or 1990. Or 2000, even 5 years ago, and that's their story. I mean it in a very respectful way. I'll sit in a hotel bar or in a lounge, and I'll see a musician at a piano singing or playing for me. I'll always, and Robin actually will tell you, will always clap, because that to me is really puts us all to shame, because that man really is there. He's not there for the money. He's there because of his love of music. So I was at the Savoy recently, and the Dorchester, and I sang with somebody on the piano, and to me, just because I wanted to be in the presence of that man's a king to me. That guy playing the piano is one of my kings, because he shows me that he's sitting there for the love of music. So I think you have to have presence of mind and humility, because who knows, man? You never know. So if I can be proud of how I live my life and be inspired by those kind of musicians. Obviously I have great musicians like Stevie Wonder, and that in a way taught me how to sing. But when I sit in a bar and I see a piano player entertaining us sometimes to no applause, I get my blood boils.
When we look at your career, it's been so fascinating how you started doing pop, and of course you had all the girls who absolutely idolised you, the posters in the bedroom, and they thought you were marvellous and all this. And now you're singing sort of standards here at Caesars, and on the billboard it says the British Frank Sinatra, that's how good they rate you. You don't pick your type of music.
Someone said that.
Yeah, they did, and I think they meant it, and it was nice of them to say it, because they don't say many nice things, do they really?
I always try and stay clear, but when an iconic... The Sun's an institution. The Sun is as famous as fish and chips in the UK, so why wouldn't I put that? I actually use it on my billboard, and it's not because I think that on any level I'm Sinatra, but I think false modesty is like arrogance in a way. If somebody says something good about me, I have to be man enough, or as my mum would say, big enough and ugly enough to accept the compliment. So if that's what they're saying, then I'm profoundly grateful and humbled by that, but at the same time I also still, if that's okay to say this, I still want to transcend every single singer that I've idolized. I want to be better than. So not that I think that I am, but what's the point of making a record where I think that I want, because I think mediocrity is the most awful thing on earth. I don't want to settle for mediocrity. As I've said to you before, I put everything in, financially, spiritually, emotionally, musically, creatively, I can into this next record. I'm working with a little producer called Ron Fair, who's been nominated 20 odd times for Grammys and discovered Christina Aguilera. His one of his first soundtracks was the Pretty Woman soundtrack. His very first gold record was the Rocky soundtrack. He's discovered, made hit records for Mary J, Black Eyed Peas, U2, Lady Gaga. The list is endless, and for him to tell me this is the record of his life, it just gives you butterflies. It truly gives you butterflies.
I was talking to you earlier about the style of music that you sing and how it sort of picks you, and you do it in such a brilliantly cool way, and I think that's why you're here. It isn't like you're watching a tribute show, because this music is very old, but of course it's so brilliant and beautifully made. But you've made it 2013, haven't you? That's very important. This stuff isn't tribute, this is your take on it.
It kills me when somebody says it's a tribute show. It literally is like, you might as well call me a magician. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's not a tribute album, it's a tribute show. I mean, I drove my band crazy in the beginning for weeks and weeks and weeks, because I told them that I wanted to put ska ska brass with Hotel California. And they're like, what do you mean ska? First of all, I'm like, well, ska is this, and this is what I grew up with as a kid. The Specials and Selector and Madness and all that. It's what I grew up with, so I incorporated that. And then half of the show is original music. But people don't even realize half the show is original music. Like Lovely Las Vegas has truly become has become a strip classic in Vegas, and it's kind of like New York in a way, but for Vegas. And we've done a new version with a full orchestra, and we put a lot more testosterone into the version. But no, the show is not in any way a tribute show or whatever that means. It's definitely original arrangements, and I even, there's a little bit in, I think it's Luck Be a Lady, I even add, fellas, I'll add an accent or two, because every time in my mind I'll be doing the show and I'll go, I want an accent here, so then I'll tell the guys to play the accent there. So it's ever changing. There'll be new things about the show tonight that you'll see.
Is there anything more thrilling than having a band behind you? Because I know in this show it's relatively small, and then on this new album it's enormous. You've got 30 on brass, 30 on strings. For any performer like yourself that is a vocalist, I mean, that's what you do. It's not about anything other than the songs, the words, the phrasing, the way you put it across. They're going to make you live or die, and if they enhance you, my God, you've got it made, haven't you?
I think that there's one word, and it's trust. They know, they really do know. And you should ask my sax player tonight. You should actually get a quote from him, and I don't even know what he's going to say, but just ask him if I notice, and if they're, tell him I've asked you to ask if I notice if there's ever a bum note, even slightly sharp or slightly flat, when they hit a note, because it has to be at a certain level. But in return, we have tremendous respect for each other, and sometimes we just play for each other, and that's okay, because it happens to be entertaining when you see musicians getting off on each other. And trust me and my band on a regular basis get off on each other all the time musically. So I think trust and respect from both sides is the key to a good show. I will say to any performer that's just starting out, if you're uncomfortable on stage, the audience will be immediately uncomfortable. And I'm just not. I actually can't wait, because my pages, I don't get a text, I don't get emails, I don't get bothered. I just sing. So me being on stage is like me being in bed.
We are having lunch. We should tell our audience whilst we're chatting, we're actually eating, and it's nice to see a star who's prepared to eat. Your regime, because of course we've talked earlier about your fashion sense, we know that's impeccable. This physique, this physicality, of course the girls absolutely adore you. You're eating some sushi. What is this?
This is tuna sashimi on baked rice with, I believe, a sesame ponzu sauce.
It's very LA. I mean, some people say you wouldn't eat a shepherd's pie as maybe an appetizer.
Well, it's hard enough for me to get into my tuxedo on a regular basis, so every year that goes by, the bread does kind of like sit heavy, and I don't want to be the fat Matt Goss in Vegas, so.
Now there's a tribute act that could actually work here.
It's the fat years. In fact, maybe these years right now are the fat years, but I promise you I'll be svelte again for the new album.
We were talking about the atmosphere on stage, and the one thing I loved about you, which isn't necessarily the case with every show here in Vegas, is the energy, that you looked like you were enjoying yourself, you looked like you wanted to be there. It is tough, this game. I mean, we're talking this afternoon, you've just flown in from LA, you're sat here having to talk to idiots like me, then you've got to get ready for the show, then you've got to do the show, do the same tomorrow, fly home. It's relentless, isn't it?
It is, actually. We fly. I totally agree with it. About idiots like you. Thanks. Obviously. My pleasure. You're actually one of my favourite people to do interviews. You genuinely are. You're absurdly articulate. But I think that I say to like Joe, my assistant, and people around me, I said, there's only one way to enjoy this, and that's and embrace the mayhem. Enjoy the mayhem. You're either made for this or not, and I put it down to suspension. You either have the suspension to go over the terrain of the music industry, or you will literally turn right and the chassis will break in half. I've seen it happen. And there's a kind of a sadistic love of the unknown terrain of the music industry, because it is so tumultuous and so treacherous that you only have one choice, and that's to embrace the mayhem. And you can do a right turn. I did a show in, as I said, I did a show in Washington. One of the secretaries of Homeland Defense was at the show, and his wife loved the show, and says, and then he offered me a private tour of the White House the next day. So I'm in Washington for one day. It doesn't surprise anybody that knows me. Within one day of being in Washington, I'm in the White House. It's just the way my life is. I'm extremely lucky. I'm extremely blessed by every single little thing I do. Doesn't matter if I've done something way bigger. I'm still in awe of every single day.
But you can't fake that for too long. There's got to be a basis of talent, and there can be an element of luck, but there's got to be some reason why they want you on board, and that is down to your talent and the fact that you're so tenacious you're still here. I mean, that's the point, isn't it? That you wouldn't be invited if you weren't any good.
I think it's taken me a long time to say that as a Brit, you can put me in the ring with anyone, any singer you want. Put me in the ring, and I'm definitely a world class at what I do. Put me in the ring. Give me the chance to put me in the ring.
Do you cringe like me when you watch things like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent live, and you see these performers who are international megastars who clearly can't sing? I mean, that's surprising, isn't it, that you could be #1 around the world yet you can't hold a note?
I think it's that Kit Kat commercial. It always comes to mind when you just said that. He said, you can't sing, you look awful. And he breaks the Kit Kat and says, you're going to go a long way. I think so much is marketing these days. I say this with absolute respect. I don't concern myself of any of that anymore. When I came and played the Royal Albert Hall 2 or 3 years in a row now, the manager of the building of the Royal Albert Hall said to me, some days we come to work. She said, some days we come to work. She said, today we didn't come to work. That's the person that manages the Royal Albert Hall to me. That put a lump in my throat. I get to sit in the same dressing room as Sinatra sat in, as Eric Clapton sat in, and people that I love, musicians that have changed my life, and people that I've cried to, laughed to, made love to. But I didn't need to. The thing for me, and the thing I would say for my mum, above all people, my mum, is that I didn't have to ask anyone's permission to play the Royal Albert Hall, and I didn't have a hit record on the radio at the time. I just came in and did what I did. That to me is, my mum has cried because she's like, when are people going to listen? When are they going to listen? And for me to go into the Royal Albert Hall and just sing to her, say, and see her in the box and be like, and sing to her, and see 5,000 people that we advertised. Quite frankly, we didn't even take an ad out. We just put it out on Twitter. There is a sense that, don't get me wrong, mate, with every inch of my soul, I want the British public to hear my new album. Like, listen to this album, because even if you wanted to make this album and you had the budget, I don't think you could make this album in less than 2 years. Write it and make it. I don't think it's possible. So, sorry it's a long-winded answer, but I think for me, not having to ask permission, like my friend Rob today said, he said, do you fancy doing a week at Ronnie Scott's? I know that I can. I know that I don't have to advertise, and I don't need a promoter. So that's a nice feeling, finally, to be there. But I tell you, I would like to get back to the venues and the level of venues and the amount of venues and the amount of people that I used to touch. I would like to do that again. And all it will take is people just going, I'm going to check this album out.
Welcome back to our remaining moments with Matt Goss. We're here at Caesars, discussing very, very intellectual things like the highlights of avocado in a chicken salad. We really do have some marvellous conversation.
I have a genuine concern that I think that there should be equality in salad, and avocado is just placed on the top of the lettuce like it's a stepchild, and it should be mixed in with the rest of the family. I mean, is that too much to ask?
Is this what you do then every day? Just eat chicken and lettuce, and this is how you look so slim?
I give the illusion of looking slim. Naked, I'm I mean, if I weren't wearing 3 pairs of Spanx right now, I couldn't get in this 32 waist pair of pants. No, I mean, I'm not svelte and slim. I'm just a regular 40-year-old fella that worries about like everyone else. I just have to watch what I eat. You know, like, all I want to eat is bread and butter. With actually chip butters, I could live on chip butters for the rest of my life if it didn't have such a horrible effect on your arteries. But no, I just, you know, genuinely, I have to be careful, because when you're on stage and you eat too heavy, and it's just like, it's just not fun. It takes singing so physical, you know what I mean? Using your diaphragm, your ribs, your lungs, it's just, you know.
Do you think Spanx could be my future? We were just talking about me moving into TV, possibly. I mean, Spanx, do you think that could be the difference between me sat here talking to you for radio or maybe getting on the television?
I think if you wore Spanx, you should wear very, like, especially the top half, you should wear very short ones so your belly really sticks out. And then...
I do have a bit of a muffin top, I think they call it.
You have a muffin top?
I've sort of got a veranda above the toy shop.
A veranda above the toy shop. We like to call it the cash and prizes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We won't mention the slots. I want to talk about your new album. We talked about it earlier, and the passion that you've put into it and the effort. I don't think I've ever spoken to a star before who spent 3 years dedicating their life to getting something absolutely as they want it. You've put your own money into it, you've put your pride into it, you've put your name into it. This means the world to you, doesn't it?
It means everything to me, and also when it's hard to explain Mr. Ron Fair. Ron Fair is probably one of the most meticulous, cerebral people you'll ever meet, and neither one of us are fans of mediocrity. Like, it annoys us, and he'll bring out a reference and goes, "Well, do you know so and so, and it'll be a reference from 1936, and we won't continue the session until he finds that clip on YouTube." In fact, there was a 2-hour period of an album, and I said, "Ron, this is ridiculous," and he goes, "No, this person doesn't exist. He must exist. This is great. This is great." And as a harmonica player, a British harmonica player, and I said, and we were on YouTube and we were online and we're trying to find clips, and then it occurred to us, maybe let's check iTunes. And thank God he was on iTunes, and we could continue the session. But that kind of tells you what music means to Ron. And my mum actually said this. She said, "Ron's the first person that's allowed your music to be your music." And Ron said, "Let's build skyscrapers on your music." And that's what we've done. And the best way I can say it is that I'll be doing backing vocals for 5 hours, and then we'll get to a piece of a song, and in our hearts we know we really need another 5 hours, and then so we'll do another 5 hours. And when it's that difference between saying, "No, that sounds good enough," or it does, or it sounds perfect. And the guy that's mixing the record is a guy called Peter Mokran, who is also world class. And we're all in this vacuous kind of space of getting this thing finished. We've got nothing else really exists for us at the moment. It's kind of a beautiful place to be.
How do you know when to stop, though? There's got to be a point where it's magnificent, it's perfect, because you can overproduce, you can over-record. Sometimes the first take of that slight roughness in the voice or the vibrato might be the thing that people love the most. There's got to be a point, hasn't there, when you say, "Okay, we're just going to have to leave it now"?
No, I totally agree with you. Listen, don't get me wrong. I can't bear if it's completely perfect, especially vocals. I mean, vocals have to be soulful. I'm talking about the logistics of getting orchestras and brass players and arrangements and stuff like that. This is what I'm talking about. The album is being mixed on the 15th of January, so we are done. I mean, the album isn't like, oh, we're enjoying this frivolous journey of like, let's just do whatever we want. No, we're trying to make a record that incorporates tomorrow and yesterday in a way that makes us happy. You know, there's music from the past that I adore, and but I also want to make a record. I want to create. There's 14 songs. I don't know if there's gonna be 14 songs on the album, but there are 14 original songs, and me and Ron both believe that all of them are standards. So, and it's crossed between Elvis and Frank and Stevie, and it's Sting, everything. Police, you know, everything I've loved in music, it's got a piece of.
This means the world to you. You've put everything into it. Are you being a genius in doing this, or are you risking what you've already sort of achieved? There's a big gamble here. I mean, you talk about the casinos being full of gamblers on the slots. You're gambling your reputation, you're gambling your money, you're gambling everything, aren't you?
There's not one single piece of my body that thinks this. No, there's not one piece of my body or soul thinks I've made a mistake. This record is beautiful, and it's one of many. Let me add that. This is just the record that I've always wanted to make, and I've been able to do it. And I've been able to work with a producer that I've always wanted to work with. And my management company at Vector have been responsible for careers of Bon Jovi, Kings of Leon, all the way through to Kesha. I mean, they're my managers, and and my team. My agent's a CAA, and you don't have a team like that if you're making mistakes. And that's before the record's out. So there's not a doubt in my mind. Self-investment is, in anyone that has their own business, self-investment is terrifying. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, it's just, the closer I get to the finishing this record, the less terrified I am.
When people say to me, what's Matt Goss like? I firstly say he's a nice guy, which is always surprising to people because you were so cocky back in the day and you had the world at your feet.
Were we?
I think you were. I mean, from a guy's point of view, watching you on stage, you were cocky. I mean, you were kings of the castle. You had every right to be. I mean, you were the biggest stars in the day, weren't you?
I don't know. I remember a really sad comment that somebody said to my brother. They said, "Are you really this nice?" I think I was an 18-year-old guy that had hits. I lost a ton of money. I think I've always been a respectful human being. I think my mum would have kicked my ass if I wasn't. I think what the problem was is I think it was a story made in journalistic heaven when people that are so successful and so wealthy fall from such a great height. It is the perfect tabloid fodder and I think that's what happened.
Also, from a chubby ginger point of view, there's a huge resentment that I wasn't you. I mean, to have that amount of popularity and fame and girls after you, I said to you last time, if I could just be your private parts for half a day, it would be marvellous.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because if I was your private parts for a day, I'd be scratching my balls all day long. But
please don't refer to my half an inch and dozen wrinkles again, because it's not nice.
Obviously, when you're fully aroused, that is.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, jealousy is the destroyer of dreams. Fear is the destroyer of dreams. Anyone that knows me, I think pretty much since I was a kid, anyone that knows me, I don't want to be the only guy at the traffic lights with a nice car. I want everyone around me to feel their absolute best. You can ask anyone around me. I don't give away things that I don't like. I don't like that. If I love something and somebody really loves it, I get immense pleasure in giving things. I'm not trying to in any way defend myself. It's just the way I live my life. I love people around me feeling the best they can. And I can give you my word on this. If you don't compete with your friends and you just want the best for them and they want the best for you, there are going to be times when your friend is doing better than you. If your friend's a good friend, he's going to look out for you and he's going to pull you up. He may pull you up past himself, but make sure you pull him back up. And it's a never-ending, beautiful process. I think it's called Pay It Forward. And I think that that's how I live my life, mate, and that's the honest truth. I couldn't sit in front of, he's been around me for a few days, and what's one of my key concerns for you personally?
I feel my best, and I feel like $1 million.
But it is. What's the point of it? It's tough. These are people I love, and I get a lot of love in return. And
were you this knowledgeable and this spiritual in a way when you were 18 years old?
My grandfather was a spiritual man. He was a faith healer and a medium. He was a gunner in the Second World War. He lost his wife when she was 50. Instead of turning against God, he went towards his faith. And when you talk about Bros and the money lost, people forget, in the middle of the whole thing, my sister was killed. So, not to bring it down, but I could give a shit about losing money, making money. If God allows me to sing my heart out, and when I see a grown man cry, which I do on a regular basis, when I sing The Day We Met, because the song is about new beginnings for a person that's maybe broken up with their wife or broken up with somebody they love, and they have to have the courage to face that next day and put the left foot in front of their right foot. They're things that interest me. If I am blessed to have money along the way, I can tell you now, I have to still work for my living. I can't retire. Would I like to be in a situation where I can retire? Yes.
I don't know about that, because you're so good at what you do and you seem to enjoy it so much.
No, but I wouldn't retire. What I mean is the freedom where I can always make within my own self, my own moral compass. You know what I mean? I'd like, when you have the right amount of money, you can make decisions that you truly want to make. Sometimes when you're not financially secure, you have to make compromises and decisions that you may not have made. I've been there. Now, you know, it is shit or bust, you know, and I've chosen to self-invest and make something that I truly believe in, and that's what I mean. I mean, do I want, like any other person, to have the freedom just to say, hey mum, go on a cruise for 6 months? Yeah, of course I want to do that, you know, and whenever I can spoil the people I love, then I will. But money, it's absurd to me. It doesn't have anything to do with music. It's just a guy sitting on the sidewalk that moves you on a subway, and he's playing a song, and he's moving to you. Do you give a shit how much money he's got in his wallet? It doesn't matter. What matters is if you believe that the person singing that song is authentic. I can give you my word, when it comes to singing, I'm as authentic as a man can be.
Where I am fascinated, without getting too philosophical, is how you get over bitterness, because that's something I struggle with in my life. This is a tough business. You've already mentioned that. Life is hard. I mean, you talk about your sister, the tragedies that you go through. I wish I were a better person, that I could be as magnanimous as you are in sort of seeing the positive light and walking towards it, opposed to being angry at why it happened. That's a hard life thing, isn't it?
I think, you know, I have a tattoo on my arm that says, never waste good agony. For a songwriter, for a journalist, for any of us, if we can truly know the best outcome when you're in pain, is to try and create something from it, rather than wallow in stuff. Because at the end of the day, if a girlfriend hurts you, or a boyfriend hurts you, and you allow that pain to continue. I broke up recently a couple of years ago from a 10-year relationship. I could be bitter and assume every single woman's going to do the same thing or whatever, but I don't. It's an injustice to somebody, and it wastes time. There's a word to me called acceptance. I accept it, and I have to just try and find, because I know really I'm the only one that's going to be in peril and not benefit from the situation. I honestly think that when you can find, going back to what I said before, wanting the person next to you to do well, and say, hey, you do the same for me, you got my back, loyalty, everything kind of somehow is lubricated. And you know, as James Taylor says, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You know, if one of your friends needs some help, don't wait for them to ask. Notice, because that rids you of that. Destroys somebody's pride and dignity. Like, if you think, try and notice when somebody needs something. Don't even know why I'm saying this, but I think that what I've been grateful for in my life, when somebody just says, hey, are you okay? Or, you know, life is far more fun that way, I give you my word.
And of course, the ultimate revenge in any negativity that happens in your life is success. And that's really what you've proved, is that through the good times, the bad times, you're still here, you're still current. I go back to what I said originally, which is remarkable. What's
the one thing we can't do without? It's our next breath. I mean, whether we like it or not, our health, our next breath is, you know, there's a thing, you know, sometimes I tell people to take the deepest breath they can, because it oxygenates your blood and it actually puts things in perspective, because we forget that one thing is the only thing we cannot do without, whether we are in pain, because really, if you love somebody and you miss them, like which I've been in that situation, there's nothing really quite as incredible as life. And I have, who knows, man, I hope this interview comes to fruition, and in regards to that I get to have another interview with you, and you said, hey, you know, people love this record. So some people they're like, how can somebody just be so obsessed about a record? It's because it's, you know, I wanted to call the record 900 Days because it's like 900 days of my life of you know, and but that's what I'm blessed for, that there is something in my life that I'm passionate about.
Thank you for talking to me again. It's always nice seeing you. You are genuinely a nice guy. The way that you treat people around this casino is inspiring, and so many could learn from it. The way you've come back to fight another day is inspirational in itself. I mean, to get your own room named in Vegas, who gets that? Who gets to do 2 shows a week to sell out crowds? Congratulations on being you. Let's do this again when we hear the album. I can't wait to hear it. It sounds remarkable, and to put all that into it, it would be very easy to sit back and just be Matt Goss, because there are people who will have you on any program who will offer you big bucks, which won't ultimately get you where you want to be, which is on a stage with a microphone entertaining your punters, isn't it?
I think I have it's the working class mentality where, and I think it's probably a very British mentality, is that as much as I would like to say to you, sit here and say to you, I don't care. I love my country. I represent my country every single day in my own way. Anyone around you would tell you that I'm a proud Brit, and I do care, and I would love my lot to have a good old listen to what I've been doing, and I think it'll all make sense once you ever listen.
Thank you so much for talking to me again. It's always fascinating hearing your thoughts and being you. I mean, you're just so generous to everybody around you, and I think that comes with age. And I think with having your fame so young, at this point, what are you now, 65, 67, something like I've offended you, haven't I? Sitting here 20 years later, it proves that you can still be doing it at the top of your game in the world's entertainment capital. On the billboard there, you've got Celine Dion and Rod Stewart and Elton John, and you're there with them as I stood at the box office. That is unbelievable, isn't it?
It's, you know, driving in, you saw the portrait at the front with those people. It's still unbelievable. But I think that you either want to be a star or you want to be a singer. I want to be a singer, and if the stardom comes along with that, then I'm a blessed man.
My final question: would you like my avocado? I don't want it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Matt Goss, lovely to talk to you again. Thank you very much.
Much love to everyone. Thanks, mate.